Japan Makes Me Scared, a podcast to the chilling realm of Japanese horror stories. My name is Junpei, and I will invite you to the mysterious world of Kaidan, exploring spine-tingling experiences that have haunted Japan. Konbanwa minasan. Welcome back to another episode of Japan Makes Me Scared. I'm Junpei, your host, and I'm gonna share various horror, scary stories of Kaidan in this podcast. Question of the day: what do you think is the scariest element in a scary story? I've got a personal answer to this one, and I think it's how high the skill of storytelling is. To give you an extreme example, let's say there are two people, A-kun and B-kun, and each of them saw the same ghost near a certain bridge yesterday. How A-kun told the story was something like this. You know, I went near the bridge yesterday, and I saw a suspicious woman. She had black hair and was wearing white clothes, and she was also wobbling with her bare feet. I couldn't see her face clearly, but I wonder if that was a ghost. What do you think of this story? The event of seeing a ghost itself is scary, but you honestly think it doesn't convey that much fear very well, don't you? On the other hand, what if Beacon's version of the story was something like this? This is what happened yesterday when I went to that bridge. There are usually a lot of people and cars crossing around that bridge, but maybe because it was a bit late that time, there was nobody there at all. So I was trying to get past it as fast as possible. Just as I started to cross that bridge, I saw something in the middle of it. At first, I couldn't see it clearly in the darkness, but as my eyes gradually got used to it, it looked like a woman. She had black hair and white clothes, and she was wobbling and swaying slowly. Why would a woman possibly be at the bridge in the middle of the night like this? I felt fear welling up all at once. It was too scary to see her face clearly, so I immediately turned around and took another road home. I wonder what that woman was. How do you feel about that? At least, it felt more scary than the A-kun version of the story, didn't it? Now you're getting the idea, right? It's better if the event itself is also scary. But what has more influence is the storytelling technique, like the tone of the voice, the structure of the story, and the ability to describe situations and emotions in words. Something like that. So you can say the event is like the raw ingredients, and storytelling technique is more like spices and other seasonings. If you're a kind of Japanese Kaidan lover, you might have noticed that many Kaidan tellers are comedians. And I guess the reason behind it is because they're good at storytelling in general. You know, they're kind of the experts in that category. Today's story is also from a comedian about a made-up story that will scare you off. Alright, let's move on to the storytelling part. Episode 33, Made-up Story. The original story is from Shigeki Nakanishi is from a Japanese comedian duo, Nas Nakanishi, and sometimes talks about Kaiden stories as well. He also heard this story from one of his friends. From here, I would describe I as Shigeki himself for convenience. This is a story that my friend Ueda-kun actually experienced. One night, Ueda-kun was having a drinking party with 6 of his friends. At that time, they decided to tell Kaiden scary stories one by one. Honestly, Ueda-kun started feeling kind of uncomfortable about that. You know, he wasn't interested in Kaiden at all, and didn't know any of such stories. But also, he didn't want to break the mood at the party. So Ueda-kun came up with the idea of telling a story that came to him on the spot. In other words, he just told a made-up story there. In short, the story was something like this. There was a suicide by fire in a parking lot near the restaurant where they're drinking now. That's why there's been a ghost spotted there ever since. Again, he just made up this story at random, but everyone's reaction was unexpectedly exciting. They were like, "Eh? I knew that parking lot. Ah, that's why it feels scary near there." Ueda-kun was rather satisfied with the reactions, and the drinking party itself ended happily as well. After leaving the restaurant, Ueda-kun was walking home alone on the street. As it was much later in the evening, there was almost no one walking around. Then, from the other side, a woman came walking alone. When he had a glance at her, she was wearing only a short skirt and white t-shirt. It was winter time, so her clothes looked too light. As he was just thinking that she was kind of weird though, the woman suddenly approached Ueda-kun. He was surprised for a moment, but it turned out to be nothing. She was just asking for directions. "Excuse me, do you know how I get to this place?" The only thing that was a bit strange was that the place she wanted to go to was the parking lot. You know, the parking lot he had just been talking about at the drinking party. Ueda-kun was also a bit suspicious, like, is it just a coincidence? Or what? To be honest, it was a bit creepy, so he tried to end the conversation by giving her directions as soon as possible. Also, he didn't simply want to get involved with a strange person in the first place. After asking for directions, the woman said, "Thank you very much," and walked toward the parking lot. Ueda-kun was kind of relieved, like, "Oh good, she was just leaving finally." As he was thinking that, suddenly, the woman turned around and said, "Oh, by the way, you talked about me earlier, didn't you?" Oshimai. Thank you very much for listening to the story. How'd you find it? There's one mystery that remains here. What was the woman Whittaker encountered? We can have a little bit of deep dive into this. One theory is that she was also made up by Whittaker, just like a house nation. You know, by talking about the story, he kinda hypnotized himself and created imaginary woman to align with the story. That could be the theory if he approaches in more like a scientific way. But the other theory, which I assume is more possible, is that this woman kind of made him talk about her. So in the theory, there was actually the suicide of that woman in the past. And Whittaker thought he made up the story at random by himself, but possibly the spirit of the woman worked on his unconsciousness somehow to create a story. Plus, considering that she was underclothed in wintertime, it is more natural to think that she's not a living person. By the way, she didn't even try to hurt Whittaker in a mean way, so maybe she wasn't any kind of vengeful spirit, and she just wanted people to know about her pain and suffering when she was alive. Anyway, do you have any theories on the story as well? I've got a Discord channel where anybody can join and share thoughts and theories. Of course, I'll be there as well. I'm gonna leave the link in the description, so please join and enjoy the interaction if you would. Also, I've got my own website, japanmakesmescared.com, where you can find a transcription of the story, more detailed information about the episode topic that I couldn't get to in the podcast, and more visual images related to the episode as well. To reach my website, you can simply type Japan Makes Me Scared in your browser or check the link in the description. Just one more thing, this podcast, Japan Makes Me Scared, is available on almost all popular podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or Amazon Music. Also, if you push the follow button and the app of your choice. First of all, for me, it will be a huge support and motivation, and for you, you will not miss notifications for future episodes. So please consider following my podcast as well. Alright, we are getting close to the end, so let me say one thing. Arigatou gozaimasu again for listening to my podcast, Japan Makes Me Scared, and sayonara for more children fruits next time. Bye!